Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Katy Genseke. I'm Director of Clinical Product Management here at Riverside Insights. Thanks for joining today. I wanted to spend some time with you all talking about selective testing tables, what they are and how to use them. So the selective testing tables are part of the Woodcock-Johnson in all of the different tests that they have. So when you look at the comprehensive assessment system that the Woodcock-Johnson offers, you'll see the complete kit there. And that kit offers 3 different batteries. We've got the cognitive battery, the achievement battery, and the oral language battery. And it looks pretty overwhelming. And I'll be honest, when I first started to learn the WJ, I did not learn it in school. I was trained as a clinical psychologist, and we were trained on some other tests when I was in graduate school. And so I decided to start using some other assessments to complement what I was already using, and just to kind of get a different feel and expand my horizons with assessment. And so when I first got my WJ, I was a little bit overwhelmed. There are a lot of tests in there, and having not been trained on it initially, there's a lot to look at and to learn. And I thought, my goodness, I'm never going to figure this assessment out. There's too many tests. So when looking at this, it can be pretty overwhelming. And that's when I took a deeper look into some of the materials and thankfully found the selective testing tables, which became my guide. And I still use them as a guide. So here we have, these 3 batteries in the WJ, the cognitive, the achievement, and then the oral language. So the cognitive and the achievement tests both have the standard batteries, and then they also have the extended batteries. So we've got those 2 different test easels that come with it. And then the oral language just has 1 test battery. But if you combine all of those tests, there are 50 tests in all of that combined, which is really overwhelming, a lot of tests there. So it's really important to be able to look at, what am I going to do here with these tests? I can't give, my poor client all of them. We have to really kind of look at what the question is. So depending on the purpose and the extent of the assessment, it's really going to be important for the examiner to look at, am I just going to give some tests in the standard? Am I just going to give some tests in the extended? Am I going to mix and match some tests? And if I do, why? What am I trying to accomplish here? It could be really overwhelming to look at all of them and think, which ones do I give? So looking at, all of the tests, we can really be selective in our testing and administer only the specific tests that are going to answer the referral question. Why am I testing this person? What are they coming in with? What am I trying to solve for? What answers am I trying to get? And that's where I'm going to look at the selective testing tables and really determine, how I'm going to pick the tests that I need to give. And this is a great way to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself, and you're definitely not overwhelming the person that you're testing as well. You don't want to fatigue them by giving them too many tests that aren't necessary. So here we've got our tools, and I like to think of the WJ as having a lot of tools to offer here. We've got our tool set that's more of actually kind of a clay or artistic tool set, but I think that's good, because what we're doing is really building and crafting some of the answers and looking at what we are kind of creating here to help our clients in any way that they need. So we don't really have to look at, the WJ in its entirety and administer all of those tests to a single person. That would be close to torture. So it's really going to be important to select the tests that you need to. And the more experience you have with the WJ, the less this is difficult. You're going to say, oh, I need a test for this reason. These are the tests I'm going to choose. So familiarity does help. But definitely when you're looking at how to align your test battery for someone, you're going to really want to look at what the referral question is, and that's going to guide you to where you can use these selective testing tables. So again, kind of that analogy of a craftsmanship, it's really appropriate here. You can get an extensive tool, so your toolkit is your WJ, but you can look through and only pick those tools that you need to answer the questions. And then also looking at, who are you that's using the WJ? Are you a clinical psychologist, a school psychologist, a special ed teacher, a speech and language pathologist. We've got so many different users crafted for the WJ, and we all use it for different reasons based on what we're looking for in the assessment. So, you know, we've got everything at our fingertips. We just have to pick the right test to get the answers that we need. So do you want to take a second here to kind of go through the difference between the tests and the clusters? It's really important because when we look at the selective testing tables, that's how they are split up. So when you are looking at the tests really are the basic administration components. So individual tests that have individual items within those tests. And overall, we administer the test and we get an overall composite score. And then what do we do with it? Well, when we look at the selective testing tables, we'll see that they fit into clusters of tests. And the clusters are really the basis for interpretation. So the clusters are very important when you're looking at how am I going to start to interpret the data I've just collected by giving these certain tests. We don't want to just generalize an ability from a test alone, because that's not the best way to look at how someone's overall ability or broad ability is really being measured just by a single test. So we want to look at those clusters. The clusters are really our guide to being able to interpret accurately someone's overall ability. And then when we look at, you know, that overall ability cluster and start to make some interpretations, we may then have to go down to the test level to see something's a little off here or something maybe doesn't make sense. Let me look at the test and see how that came to be. Now, a common question, just to throw it out there too with the WJ that we have is, you know, I've got a cluster score that's at the average level, let's say, but when I look at the tests, you know, the tests are high average or maybe the tests are low average. So why is the cluster score coming out to be average? So I think a misinterpretation or a misunderstanding of the cluster score is that it's just an average of the test scores that make up that cluster. And that's not how it works. So there is actually an assessment service bulletin. It's posted on our website under the WJ. And I'll put that website up at the very end. That explains how cluster scores are derived from the test scores. And there's statistical analysis that goes into that. So it's not just a simple average. It's really based on the normative data and the weighting of certain tests to make up the clusters itself. So I just want to put that out there because I do know that's a common question when it comes to tests versus clusters and how to interpret. So overall, you know, it's important to consider the narrow abilities, which are, you know, kind of brought upon by the test when we look at the cluster scores and we think, okay, something's off here, or we need a little bit more analysis, and we'll look at those tests. But it's a really nice guide to have the tests and the clusters here. And I'm going to start with the cognitive battery. And I'm going to go through the selective testing table for this battery. And then, of course, the others will follow the same suit. So it'll probably make a little bit more sense if you're not familiar with these tables. And then it'll be a kind of a quicker overview for the rest of them. But starting with the cognitive, so this is the selective testing table for the WJ4 tests of cognitive abilities. And you'll see down the left-hand side, we've got COG 1 all the way to COG 18. So those are the individual tests that are contained, 18 tests contained in that cognitive battery. Cognitive tests 1 through 10 are contained in the standard battery easel, and then tests 11 through 18 are contained in that extended battery easel. You do see some oral language tests down there, 1 and 5 from the oral language battery, which are from the oral language easel. Those are contained in there because if you do administer certain tests from the oral language battery and certain tests from the cognitive, you can get a cluster score. So we want to make sure that you can see that too as you're administering. So now looking at across the top, you'll see the clusters. What can we get when we administer these tests? And that's really where I think it's important for you to think about the referral question. So we've got our cognitive composite clusters up there. So we've got our GIA, which is really just your IQ score, your general intellectual ability. You have your BIA, which is the brief intellectual ability score, if you just need a quick one. And you have your GFGC composite score. So those are your cognitive composites. And then you have your 7 individual CHC factors that the WJ is really looking at. So if you're looking at just the cluster scores, you've got them all across there, or all across the top there. And then we have our narrow ability and other clinical scores as well that you can get from the clusters. So now you see how it's outlined with the tests on the left side and the clusters running up top. And then it's really just kind of a going through and mixing and matching to see what you need. So for the most part, I'd say 90% of the people who use the cognitive battery are looking to get just a general IQ score. So there's no reason to look really past tests 1 through 7 if that's all you need. You know, just the basis, quick IQ score, here we go. I'm going to say, I'm going to give cog tests 1 through 7. You'll see they're included in a different color slightly there because those are pretty much what people use this test for to start out. If you have already had someone who's tested, or maybe you don't need as extensive of an IQ assessment, you can go with a brief. So you would only have to give 3 tests, tests 1, 2, and 3 to get that brief score. And then you can see how the other tests then fall into some of the clusters. So what's really important is, like, when looking at it, let's say we give those 7 tests. We're just getting our IQ score, but then we notice something. Maybe they are really struggling on test 3, that verbal attention. You know, you got your IQ score, that's great, that's wonderful, but you looked at the actual test scores and that verbal attention score was really low. And you're kind of wondering, what's going on there? I wonder if they have a deficit in perhaps short-term working memory. That would be some great data that I'd want to complement my test and my assessment with. So I've already got that verbal attention score. I already know something's going on there. I'm just going to have to go through and pick out another test to be able to get the short-term working memory. So if I look at the table, if you go from COG test 3, verbal attention, and you go across to where it intersects with short-term working memory, and then run down that column, you'll see that COG test number 10, numbers reversed, is another test I can quickly throw into my battery here and see if they have some deficit in short-term working memory. If I want to get even a more robust cluster score there, I can go ahead and throw in COG test number 16, object number sequencing. And that additional test, if I throw that in there, is going to give me an extended version of the cluster, just more robust data to say, how am I doing? How's this person doing here with their short-term working memory? Is there something there that they don't understand? Is there a deficit there that needs to be addressed? Is that why it's impacting some of their cognitive functioning, some of their abilities that we're seeing? Maybe it's something that came in, for the referral question as well. So just by doing some of this, adding on a test or 2 here or there, you can fill out a cluster pretty easily when you're looking at things. And that's why I think these tables are really valuable, is because it leads you to the other tests you need to answer the questions that come up even during your testing session itself. So you'll always want to see, look at those tests that you're using to get your cluster score. If there's something that's jumping out, what else can I give to fill out that other cluster to see if that's maybe a deficit for them? Or on the other hand, a strength. Maybe they're doing really well somewhere and we want to say, okay, their fluid reasoning score is really high. I'm going to go ahead and throw in COG test number 9, concept formation, and see if that, if that's really high too, and that overall cluster for fluid reasoning is one of their strengths. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do by just looking at this table, and pulling in additional tests to really fill out your assessment and make sure that it's as accurate as possible and addressing all the questions that you have. So those are my examples with the COG. I'll go through the achievements, and of course, now that you see the layout, it's going to look very familiar. So all of the test tables are set up the same way here, with our tests going down on the left-hand side. So achievement, you can see, has 20 tests in both the standard and extended batteries. And then across the top, you've got your clusters as well. So with the cluster scores here, you'll see that it really addresses the reading, the math, the writing. Most people are looking for whether or not someone has a learning disability in one of those areas. And then it's got the cross-domain clusters as well. So you can get just a broad or brief academic cluster there to see how they're doing across all domains. You can also kind of look at, is there a phoneme graphing knowledge You can look at their academic knowledge. The academic skills cluster is a nice one. It goes across. It's really kind of just a basic skills. How are they doing in all three, reading, writing, and math? But if you want to take a look at seeing if it goes a little bit more in depth with academic applications, that's where you apply some of those things. So number one, do they have the foundation? Sure, maybe they do, but maybe they're, you want to look at whether or not they can apply some of those things. So you want to get another cluster there too. So it's a really nice guide to show you what tests you can add to kind of get a full picture there. So here again, you're going to look at what's the question. Am I looking for, is this person having a deficit or showing some signs of weaknesses in reading or writing or math? If so, where am I going to look to test? I'm certainly not going to give them the full battery if I don't need to. But the tests 1 through 6 are your core, and those are enough to cover all 3 areas and give you what you need there. And then, of course, if you're noticing the same as with the COG, that there are some deficits or some strengths, if you're looking for giftedness, maybe you want to pull out some of that too. You can go ahead and add in additional tests to fill out some of these clusters here. That'll give you additional information about some of their strengths and their weaknesses, without having to overload yourself with all the testing or overload your examinee with burning them out. So this is just another really nice way to be able to tailor the testing to the referral question, making sure that you're getting what you need and adding things on the fly if you need to kind of fill out some of the questions you have during your testing session. All right, so that's the achievement. For the oral language, I'm just going to give a little bit of introduction to the oral language test. I know we've got lots of users, but it's not used as often, I feel, as the achievement in the cognitive. So just a little bit about what it is. It's a battery of tests that really lets the examiner assess language proficiency and cognitive ability, and kind of have that comparison. As you remember from the cognitive selective testing table, they pulled in oral language, and you'll see with the oral language, they'll pull in the COG too, so you can see those clusters. And so you can kind of compare it across the academic achievement and cognibility. And we have some tests in both English and Spanish. So the last 3 tests in the oral language battery are in Spanish, and they are directly comparable to the first 3 tests. And you'll see that as soon as I get to the testing table, which are in English. So you can use this battery to determine and describe the individual's strengths and weaknesses regarding expressive language. And this one has 12 tests in it, so a little less than the COG or the achievement. And then, as I was saying, you can use it in conjunction with the COG and achievement, and especially with the COG, you'll be able to get a couple of additional cluster scores there, combining it with the cognitive. So here is this selective testing table. Again, the tests on the side, oral language 1 through 12, and you'll see there picture vocabulary, oral comprehension, segmentation. When you look down at tests 10, 11, and 12, those are same, but they're in Spanish. And then, of course, below that, we've got the cognitive abilities battery COG test 1 and COG test 18, that if you had already administered those, you can get additional clusters while combining them with oral language tests. So for the oral language, the core set of tests here are 1 through 4 to be able to get the main cluster score that I think most people utilize this for. But you can always take a look and say, what am I trying to solve for here? Why am I even giving this test? What is it that I want? So it's really nice to look at, some of these clusters you can get. The oral language, the broad oral language, and the listening comprehension clusters, you can get those in Spanish as well. So if you have a Spanish speaking person, or if you want to do a comparative language index and compare their abilities in English directly to their abilities in Spanish, you can get that using these tests here. And that's going to be really important for those who are, native Spanish speaking, to see where they're at. Are they stronger in English or Spanish? But this is a really nice way to kind of look at their oral language and pull out exactly what you need. So if you've given those 4 tests for the core and you're seeing that, maybe listening comprehension seems, oral comprehension test alone seems a little weak, maybe we want to see how their listening comprehension overall is. So we're going to throw in test number 6, understanding directions. And we're going to get that cluster score. And that's just going to give us another test to support, if there is a weakness there. We want to make sure that we're not just reporting it on the test level, we want to report it on the cluster level. It's much more valid and reliable to do so. It gives us a lot more information. And if it's not, if oral comprehension is a weak test and you give understanding directions and they're doing great, then, maybe it's something to do with the oral comprehension itself and the tasks that are involved in that. We can take a look at that test more specifically. It doesn't automatically mean they have a listening comprehension deficit. So it's really important to make sure we're making our interpretive decisions based on the full clusters, not just the test itself when we, just give those basic core tests. So there are additional Woodcock products that utilize selective testing tables, and I think it's just important to call those out a little bit too. So we make it as easy as we can to make sure that you pick and choose the test you want to give, so that you're not overloaded with giving full batteries that aren't necessary. So the Woodcock-Johnson ECAD is a test that is developed specifically for ages 2 years, 6 months through 7 years, 11 months. If a child has already been identified as developmentally delayed, you can use this test up through 9 years, 11 months. And this is a nice little test that just has 10 tests combined into it. And it gives you the general intellectual ability for early development, as well as an early academic score and some expressive language. So here you can see, if you're just looking to see if this youngster has an average IQ, or if they're struggling in any way, you can just give tests 1 through 7 and get your answers that way. Or maybe you just want to get a really quick academic screen on this kid. So you're going to give them 8, 9, and 10. You're going to look at some of that reading, writing, and math in the early form. Or maybe you've got some expressive language questions. You can just pick test 3 and test 6 and be able to go ahead and find out what's going on there with some of their expressive language. So it's a really nice little test. But again, you've got a youngster there that's, 2, 3, 4 years old. You don't want to burden them with too much testing. So look at why you're testing, what you need, and then really pick your test based on that. But this is a nice test too that has just, tailored content for the younger age range. We also have the battery of 4. So here I'm only showing the achievement battery testing table, but we also have it in the cognitive as well. But I thought this was nice that it showed, the reading, the math, the writing, and then, your additional domains, cross-domain scores that you can get using the Spanish version of the WJ. So again, it's being able to get your basic foundational by just giving the core, or you can, kind of tailor them out and pick and choose what you want. Looking at, just reading skills or just writing skills. You don't have to give this entire battery. It's 13 tests. So I think it's going to be really important for you to just be able to see that. You don't have to give them all. And then we've got our Woodcock Munoz language survey. So I think that's a really good one as well. And it's combines 8 tests here to be able to get skills with listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and then some comprehension skills as well. So this is one where if you're just looking at getting, a basic listening, speaking, or if you just want some reading or writing skills, you're not going to burden the examinee or yourself with all of these tests. You're just going to go ahead and give your test 1, test 2 if you want some listening, 3 and 4 if you want speaking. And then you can look at 2 if you're just looking for basic oral language, just give tests 1 and 3. You don't have to, do that. Or maybe you want to see if they can do the applied, and you'll go ahead and give, the applied versions of the test, which are the even numbers in here for those skills. So it's a really nice way to take a look at what we've got and what tests you need to give based on that referral. So all of these selective testing tables are available in the examiner manuals for the Woodcock product based on what you're looking at. So they're all, the COG is in the COG manual, achievements in the achievement manual, and so on and so forth. But you can also take a look at them on our website. They're at riversideinsights.com. And if you go to whatever product page you're looking at, if it's WJ, or ECAD or WMLS or Bateria, these will all be up there too. So look through there and you can find them there. And then we will have our clinical catalog for 2020 posting somewhat soon, and they're going to be in the clinical catalog there too. And again, these are it's an amazing tool to be able to actually see that you don't have to give all of these tests. So it's pretty good with being able to just pick and choose what you want to use there. But that's it for today. I think I've got one question here, and you're going to excuse me for a second because I need to read. On the ECAD, how does that correlate with WJ4 determining specific learning disability? So for the question with the ECAD and WJ4, the ECAD is actually, it's got its norms with WJ4. So you can use that, but the ECAD is really being able to give for that younger age the ability to say, if you've got some learning disability, specific learning disability, you'll want to give all of the tests, unfortunately, to them, because you're going to want to establish the general intellectual ability and then look at the reading, writing, and math. And it's, in my opinion, because it's for those younger age ranges, the content is more engaging, so it's going to keep them more engaged. But it can be more of a screener in my mind for looking at whether they're going to need further testing in reading, writing, or math. So if they're having some lower scores in reading, perhaps in the reading test for the ECAD, you might want to complement that then with some of the reading tests at the younger age for WJ4 and pull those in, because I feel like the ECAD is great for kind of giving you that whether they have kind of an average or below average or above average IQ at that early age, and then whether or not they're already starting to show signs of struggle in reading, writing, or math. But I would definitely, in order to do specific learning disability diagnosis, I would go ahead and then fill it out with some other tests with the WJ based on where the deficit seems to be, just to ensure you're getting a true cluster score that's going to support whatever diagnosis you may be giving for that early age. So I'm hoping that answers that question, if I understood it correctly. But if not, feel free to type it back in, and I'll get a shootout of questions as well. So I'll be able to answer those and respond to you over email. So that'll work. But anyway, thank you for joining today. If there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the box, and I'll end up getting those. But hopefully you have a better understanding of how the selective testing tables can really help guide your testing for each individual examinee that you end up looking at. So you're not just throwing, doing the same battery over and over again, but you're really looking at the referral question, the reason for testing, and then tailoring your testing session to really fit the needs of the examinee and the data that you need to get to make your determination and to guide in your interpretation. So thanks again for joining today. And we will have a recording of this, so it'll go out, but I think it does take a week or two to actually get to attendees. So if it's not out right away, don't worry, it will be coming and you'll have access to it. And then go ahead and visit riversideinsights.com for further information or to access these selective testing tables if you want to look at them further, or print them out or get screenshots for yourself if you don't have them in the manuals. All right, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.